Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be working on the pony motor on my 830 Industrial, but it's going to be kind of a little bit different. We're going to be actually modifying it, and we're going to be putting onto it a oil pressure regulated on-off switch to basically protect the distributor and the coils that are inside of the distributor. If by some chance I was to ever leave the ignition on without the pony motor running, those coils have a tendency to burn up. Let me turn my camera around and let me show you exactly what we're working with. So right now, on the side of the pony motor, down in here, if you can see where I'm pointing, there is a little pressure switch that hooks into an oil gallery in the side of the block, you can see there, and then you can see this wire attached to it. So right now, from the factory, the way this is set up is when oil pressure is sensed right there at that switch back here. So here I am at the operator station, and this is your main power switch, and when I turn the power on, there's no oil pressure in the pony motor, but as soon as I start cranking, so this light is on right now, as soon as I start cranking the starter, oil pressure will build up and it'll turn that light off. And then once oil pressure dies, then that light goes back on. So the funny thing is even just now, as I turned the ignition switch on and that light, illuminated, and I wasn't doing anything and I was just kind of explaining what was going on, in the back of my mind, I'm paranoid that, hey, I've now got power running into the distributor, running into those coils, and I don't want to burn those coils up because they're expensive, and I just don't want to run into those sorts of problems. So I'm really interested and I'm really excited to put this kind of pressure switch onto the tractor. Now, this idea of this pressure controlled on-off switch is not something that I came up with. I was actually turned onto it from a guy that follows me on YouTube, that I reached out to him and he reached out to me at the same time once I started posting videos of this 830 Industrial, about a year and a half ago now. Anyway, his name on YouTube is Weird Deere. And you've probably seen his posts if you've been on any sort of John Deere 2-cylinder diesel forum. You'll see his name by some of the posts and some of the responses. Very, very knowledgeable, and he's been very, very helpful to me as I've been working on this project. But anyway, this also isn't specific to an 830. I think because the pony motors on a 70, 720, 730, 80, 820, 830, they're all pretty much the same. The transmissions are different, as we've talked about in previous videos, but the engine itself should be about the same. And so what I've got here what I'm doing here should be applicable to any other diesel 2-cylinder tractor. The advantage I have on this 830 is that I probably have a little bit more space in here than the people have that have 70s and the 70 series tractors. So everything else should be about the same. The heart and soul behind this whole process is this right here. It's a pressure switch with 3 terminals on it. You've got a P, an S, and an I terminal. And at the end of this video, I'll show a little clip of me going and testing with pressure to see how power goes from the P terminal to either the S or the I terminal, depending on whether whether or not pressure is coming in the back here. But I'm going to be putting this right here in place of that switch right back there. Now, on that website, on the Green Magazine article that I was reading, and I'll put a link to that down in the description of the video. In that article, there was a couple of wiring diagrams, but man, they were poor quality and they were really hard to read. So reading through the text, and you can do this yourself, and I would recommend you do that. Reading through the text, I tried to kind of follow how he described the power flowing and things like that. So I redid the wiring diagram, and I'll show that here. Hopefully it's a little bit easier to read. Okay, so let's go over here to my wiring workshop here. Close that trunk. Okay, now this is what I copied right out of the manual. Here you have basically the backside of the dash with all of the wiring, and you've got your ignition switch, and then this is your ammeter, and then this is your fuel gauge. Anyway, here's your little light that turns on that I showed you. Anyway, there's a lot going on here. So what I did is I took that and I tried to, and I'll put better pictures of this probably up so that then you can see what I'm doing. But basically, I stripped out all of the other wiring, and what I show here is just the wiring that I'm concerned about today. Basically, we've just got, this is your fuel gauge switch, and this is where power comes in through this wire into the back of the ignition switch. From the ignition switch, then you have up here, you have your power that when you turn the ignition switch to the on position, power can then flow down to the starting button right here. Now, when you press this, so that you've got down here, you've got 3 terminals that are all 3 of these terminals. When you press the starting button, then all 3 of these terminals are now connected. And when the starter button is not pushed, then nothing is connected. And right here R, I believe this is what goes to the distributor, a green wire that runs to the distributor. S, right here, this is your starting switch that goes to your cranking motor. Let me get my phone here. So S is what goes to the cranking motor. Now, when you press the starting button, what you're doing is there's 2, because you have 2 power sources that run to the starting button. One is this here, right here, which is identified as line H. This is base, and then the other one is F. Now, the only difference between H and F is they're both going to the same, they're both taking power from the ignition switch down to the starting button. But right here, you have a little ballast resistor, which cuts the voltage down so that you're not sending as much voltage from the 6-volt power supply or power source right here down to your distributor. However, when you press the button, then you're letting power, full 6 volts of power, go from your starting switch right here through line H down to the distributor. And then when you release the button, then you still have power going to the distributor through line F, but H is no longer connected to the distributor. So we're not doing anything with line H. All we're working with is line F here. And we're basically going to be removing line F, and we're going to be running from this terminal on the ignition switch out to the, let me go to the next page, out to our pressure switch here. So I've tried to redo that here, and now you've got power running instead of from the side of the ballast resistor right down here to the starting switch. Now we're running out into P, line P, which is the power line on your pressure switch. And then once pressure comes to the pressure switch, then power will flow from P to I. And so we want to go now, when we have oil pressure, from I down and into the same place that we were running before. Now into S, that's basically where we run the indicator light. We just plug it straight into S. So once you press the button, once oil pressure builds up, S turns off, so this light will go off, and then power will flow from I down into the ignition switch. So that's kind of how the power is going to run. Hopefully that's a little bit long. I know that was a little bit long-winded, but hopefully that's helpful for people who are trying to do this. Now, this is untested. This is basically how I think the power diagram should go based off of reading his article. Let's test it out and let's see if this actually does work. Okay, I've got everything run. I've got the 3 wires. One black wire is power, one black wire is to the light bulb, and then this green wire takes power to the distributor, but not directly to the distributor. I ran it back up through here and through the power, through the starting button, and then back down here. So anyway, so let's see if it works. Okay, when I turn power on, this light should glow, and it does. And as soon as I start, and with this on, we shouldn't have any power at the distributor. Let's go do that real fast. Okay, you'll just have to trust me that this switch is still on, and it is. But I'm hooked up to the distributor right back there, and I've got 0 volts. And the light is on. So that means that switch back there is not sending power to the distributor. Now let's go see if we can start it and see if it'll work. Okay, I'm back up on here. See? Light is still glowing. Now let's open up the fuel. Okay, let's see if it'll start. Choke it. Oh, it fired. And the light's off. Shut the fuel off. Fuel is off. And let's let it run out of fuel, and this light should come on when the engine is dying. There it is. So if I run out of fuel, or if my oil pressure dips off, the pony motor dies, but there's no voltage going to the distributor. Let's go back down and check that, make sure.
So I do have
just a sec.
Some one that might work. Why don't we just take a minute and take that one off?
Just a sec. Let's see, voltage here. 0 volts. Done. Okay, one thing that you will need to be aware of if you decide to do this pressure switch right here is previously the way that the light, the dashboard light up here, the way that it would illuminate and go off was through this switch. This is actually, it was grounded through this, and then the way that it would go off was once pressure came, then it would open this switch up and it would kill the ground, thus shutting the light off. Now what we're doing is we're turning the light on and off with power, and so you do have to ground that switch someplace. And I looked around, and the best place that I could find was just off of this screw on the distributor. So I don't want to be too ghetto looking, but I think that's as good a place as of any to ground it there on the distributor. So that's just something you'll need to be aware of. So anyway, it's nice to get that done. We've got protection on the coils on that pony motor on the distributor. Whether I accidentally leave, whether I leave the switch on too long on accident, as long as that pony motor's not running and there's not oil pressure, then there's no voltage to the coil. The other thing is, if I ever run out of oil, if it burns oil and it dries up, as soon as the oil pressure drops below a certain point, it'll shut the pony motor off. So a couple of good protections, I think. And so it's good to have that done. Anyway, we're going to put the sheet metal back on this thing and then button it up, and we're going to go park it under the lean-to, get it out of the shop, so that then we can actually use it this summer.
gotta go up. A little more high.
one thing since we're outside now. Perfect size coffee can. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call that a video. Probably was very specific on who's gonna find this video useful, but I figure probably most of the people that follow my channel are John Deere guys anyway. So thanks so much for watching, you guys, and I will see you next week with another video.
So right here, this is this little pressure switch that I bought from Napa, part number OP-6610. It is a little basically pressure activated switch. And I'm gonna do a little test here. You can see the terminals on this are labeled P, S, and I. So I'm gonna take P, I'm gonna hook my multimeter up, and I'm just looking for continuity. So S, when there is no pressure, then basically P and S are connected. And if I touch my lead on my multimeter here, you'll hear my multimeter beep. So there we go. I will not get power unless there's pressure. So there's no, you can see that now that it's open between the P and the I. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook this right here, and then I'm going to add a little bit of pressure, just air pressure, into the back side of this, about 20 pounds of pressure from my air compressor, and you should be able to hear this beep. Try one more time. Okay, and then, let's try this. So now I'm going to attach this and I'm going to apply pressure, and let's see if it stops beeping on the S terminal. Okay, this is going to be beeping. Let's apply some pressure here. So there you go. You heard it stop beeping, and then you saw the multimeter go to open load, or OL, when I had the air pressure in it. So it goes to show that yes, with pressure, then power is taken from the P terminal to the I terminal. And when there's no pressure, then power goes from the P terminal to the S terminal.